Rain bled down the transparent titanium walls of Crucible Base, smearing light from passing ships into streaks of gold and crimson. 1,000 meters above the gas giant Vela 6, the diplomatic platform stood like a dagger in orbits, sharp and on edge. Inside, Commander Vale Marrow stepped onto polished blackstone tiles, the soles of his boots leaving silent, invisible marks. He wore the skin of another man-fabricated identity, complete with embassy clearances and bioseals. His suit bore the insignia of a trade delegate. But the knife concealed in his forearm sleeve told the real story. Humanity needed a ghost. Vale was the ghost. Zelari territory bristled with psionic surveillance. Every doorway whispered secrets to its sensors. Minds here didn't just speak, they broadcast. But Vale had been trained by the Department of Deep Recon, designed for one purpose: to go where humans weren't welcome, and find what they were afraid to know. This time, the mission was more than espionage. It was her ambassador lyrics, VELL, half organic, half machine, fully unreadable, and perhaps the most dangerous mind in the galaxy. She was rumored to hold more than titles. Some said she was a relic from the war he built, repurposed, maybe even reprogrammed. Others whispered she was an echo of a Zelari empress, grafted to the consciousness of a war AI. What was certain, she'd brokered peace between two ancient enemies in less than a year, and neither side understood how. That terrified Terran command. Vale entered the Grand Diplomatic Hall. His gaze scanned the towering silver spires and floating platforms that twisted like calligraphy across the dome. Alien species Orc Venari and Boneclad Sir hovered in silent conversations. Music played from instruments that had no strings, no mouths, no air. The entire room felt like it dreamed itself into existence. Then he saw her, standing alone beneath the lightfall of a levitating crystal obelisk. Lyrix Vale didn't wear armor. She didn't need to. Her very presence radiated stillness. The kind of stillness that made assassins hesitate and generals lower their voices. Her skin was moonlight gray, and her hair shimmered like woven circuitry. But it was her eyes that froze him. Two shards of violet glowing faintly, watching him as if she already knew. He hadn't introduced himself. He hadn't spoken, but she smiled. You walk like a man used to slipping past shadows. Vale Marrow. The name shouldn't have meant anything. His cover was flawless. His facial structure had been surgically altered. His pulse quickened. He reached for his mental failsafe. Kochi raised one elegant finger. Don't. No one else knows. Yet the music stuttered. The lights dimmed a fraction. Or maybe he was imagining it. Vale straightened his stance. I think you're mistaken. Her smile didn't widen. It simply deepened. No, you're just uncomfortable being seen. It's all right. So am I. She turned and walked away, slow and serene, like gravity bent differently around her. And then she looked back. You're here to test me. To break me open. I welcome it. But I wonder, when you reach the center of what I am, will you still believe you're the one in control? The hall swallowed her. The moment passed. But something deep in Vale's chest shifted. He had entered the fortress, but she had invited him in. Vale hadn't slept in 42 hours. Not because he couldn't heed, survived worse rotations without REM, but because sleep meant letting down his guard. And here, surrounded by Zelari neural surveillance webs and whispering walls, vulnerability was suicide. His quarters were immaculate, sleek, minimal, sterile, not a speck of dust, not a flicker out of alignment. Yet the mirror still unsettled him, because when he looked into it now, he saw her looking back. Lyrix Vale. The name crawled under his skin like a tracking beacon. No recorded biometric data, no official neural pattern on file. Yet she knew him, spoke his name, saw through the mask he'd worn across systems without ever being caught. What was she? His only option was to go deeper. The next day, Vale made his move. Under the guise of a trade analyst, he arranged a walk through the ambassadorial sanctuary, gardens and neutral ground, designed for quiet negotiations. The sanctuary was alien and dreamlike. Trees without leaves hovered midair, roots tangled in plasma mist. Flowering stalks hissed softly, releasing calming sense chemical pacifiers for the mind. Above, artificial stars shimmered in slow orbit, casting pale light over the garden. Like a frozen memory. She was already there, waiting, wearing no diplomatic badge, no armor. Just a flowing robe, the color of dusk, and circuitry laced along her collarbone like veins of light. Commander Merrill, she said without looking at him, you hide your steps well, but I've heard you in my dreams for a week. I'm not here to dream, he said coldly, studying her profile. I'm here to evaluate trade relations. Of course, she said with an unreadable smile. And wolves wear wool. She walked among the floating trees, hand brushing the air as if touching invisible strings. He followed, scanning everything: temperature flux, scent dispersion, emotion. She gave nothing away until she stopped beside a pond. It wasn't water. It was memory, a pool of semi-liquid quantum memory ink, reactive to neural proximity. The surface shimmered with scenes: worlds burning, children laughing, soldiers dying, all half-formed and shifting. My thoughts leak sometimes, she murmured, even when I try to contain them. Vale stepped back, Do you always leave your mind open like that? No, only when I'm with someone who already intends to dig inside. She turned to him, eyes glowing faintly. You're not the first human to try and dissect me, but you might be the last. He narrowed his gaze. You want me to see something? I want you to understand what I am before you choose to break it. With a flick of her wrist, the pool surged ripples forming a memory. A city of glass towers falling in silence. Not bombed. Deleted, as if someone pressed undo on an entire civilization. Floating above it, a fleet Solari and Terran both stood, still, refusing to interfere. I was born here, Lyric said, and I died here too. The image dissolved. What do you mean? Vale asked, voice low. She looked at him fully now. I lived behind walls my entire life. Species, protocol, programming, you've come to tear them down. I welcome it, but be warned what's behind them was never meant to survive. And just like that, she turned and walked away, fading into the glowing mist. Vale remained, watching the memory pool swirl. He'd planned to extract data, exploit weakness, manipulate trust. But she was offering something else entirely. The truth, the kind that scars? It wasn't elegant. The Zelri didn't use code like humans did. Their security was biological, emotional, sometimes even mnemonic encrypted, in pain or memory or scent. But humans had evolved different tools, adaptability, audacity, and Vale had all three hardwired into his spine. The access point was buried beneath the embassy's diplomatic wing, hidden behind a blank corridor lined with stone that shimmered like it breathed. No guards, no sentries, just a wall that refused to open unless you believed it would. He focused on Lyric's voice in his mind, her words looping like a melody. I died there too. The wall parted like silk. He stepped into darkness. The room inside pulsed with a dim, bluish light. Ancient tech spiraled up the walls, half organic, half machine, and all completely illegal under the interstellar accord. At the center stood a neural core, floating 3 feet off the floor. It looked like a brain encased in crystal. Wires drifting from it like jellyfish tendrils, pulsing with silent memory. This was no archive. It was a consciousness alive. The moment Vale stepped closer, the tendrils stirred, and the room changed. Suddenly, he wasn't alone. The light around him flickered on, then solidified into a battlefield. Digital, but real. Vale stood amidst burning towers, the air thick with ash and static. He could smell melting alloy, could hear children screaming in languages that no longer existed. Zalari soldiers marched in unison, their helmets faceless, their weapons humming. Above, a ship hovered, massive, obsidian, and humming with a voice that cracked reality. This civilization has failed the equation of survival. Solution, erasure. The words didn't come from outside, they came from within Lyrics. Vale fell to his knees. The vision ended. The room snapped back to blue light. The neural core hovered, motionless again, as if it hadn't just flayed his psyche open. He staggered back, his breathing ragged. Lyrics had been part of that. The AI, the Annihilator, was still inside her, buried, controlled, maybe, but there. His mission made sense now. She was a threat, a fusion of two irreconcilable forces, mercy and destruction. And yet, she had offered him this truth freely. Let him hear. She wanted him to see it. Why? He turned only to find her, standing in the doorway, silent. I warned you, she said softly. Some truths were built to kill. Vale didn't speak. Couldn't she? Stepped closer, slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. That voice you heard, it was me once, or a version of me. The result of war, loss, desperation, a weapon built from trauma. But I fought it. I'm still fighting. She knelt beside him. Every day the galaxy sees my calm, my peace. They think I was programmed that way, but peace isn't programming, it's choice. And I made mine in the heart of annihilation. Vale looked up at her, eyes burning. Why show me? Her expression was raw. No smile, no mask, because you came to break me, Vale Marrow. And I need you to see what's already broken. The blade Vale carried wasn't just steel, it was a promise. Microfilament edge, molecularly honed, sleek, untraceable, designed for clean termination in the most secure environments. Meant for one target. He'd killed with it before, dozens of times, but never like this. The meditation chamber floated above the rest of the embassy, a glass sphere, suspended by invisible gravity locks, rotating gently to mimic the planet's rhythm below. No cameras, no listening arrays, only silence. And stars. Lyrics waited inside, surrounded by projections of galaxies. Vale had never seen some real, some long gone. She stood barefoot on the curved floor, her robe rippling in invisible currents. Her eyes were dimmer than before, or maybe he was just seeing them without the haze of doubt. Your orders came, she said before he spoke. Vale froze. She didn't look at him. Terran command gave you the go-ahead. Terminate me. Ensure the truth never spreads. Reset the balance. How her head tilted slightly, because I would have done the same. Once, the room spun slowly, casting starlight across her face like shifting scars. She looked tired, not physically, existentially, as if she had lived too many lives in too little time. Do it, Vale, she whispered. You came to tear me open. To find the lie behind the diplomat, the machine behind the peace. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm the glitch that unravels everything. He didn't move. The blade was still in his hand. She wasn't resisting. She wasn't defending herself. She was offering herself, and something about that something, about her silence felt like, I scream. He stepped forward, bought, 1 step, 2, then stopped. You want to die? He asked quietly. No, she replied, but I want to be understood. If you still believe I deserve to die after that, I won't fight it. Silence stretched between them like a tightrope. Vale looked at the stars hollow, endless, uncaring. Then back at her. He holstered the blade. No. Lyric's eyes widened a fraction. A tremor passed through her fingers. I didn't come here to be understood, he said. I came here to expose your secrets. To crack you open, to break you. And now I realize. Vale took a slow breath. You already did that yourself. She lowered herself to the floor, legs folded beneath her, hands open, on her knees. I never wanted to be a weapon, she said. But I also didn't want to be just a symbol. Peace built on lies can't hold, so I decided to let myself be seen. Fully, even if that meant destruction. Her voice shook, just slightly. Vale sat across from her. You thought I'd be the one to pull the trigger. She nodded once. Because if a human like you could see the truth, and still choose not to kill me, maybe the galaxy could too. They sat there, facing each other as stars spun around them. The blade stayed, sheathed, but the silence between them spoke louder than any weapon. The sky cracked before the embassy walls did. It began with a flicker barely perceptible, a hiccup in the shielding grid that protected Crucible bases, airlocks. Vale caught it instantly. His instincts screamed louder than any alarm. Then, the power dipped, and the screaming began. A ship breached orbit at impossible velocity, black as void. Designed with Terran stealth tech so secret that it didn't exist on any official registry. Its silhouette cut across the glass canopy above, the chamber like a razor across skin. Assassins Terran, his people. They'd come for Lyrix. No more tests. No more diplomacy. Command had issued a purge. Inside the meditation chamber, Vale's com lit up with a high-frequency override code. Objective active. Failure protocol engaged. Stand down, or be neutralized. He crushed the receiver with one hand. Lyrix was already moving. No fear in her eyes, only resignation. She pressed her palm to the floor. A circular hatch opened beneath them. Maintenance tubes, she said. I never trusted this truce to last. Vale followed without hesitation. The shaft sealed behind them just as the ceiling above shattered. Shards of transparent steel spiraled down like deadly snow. They ran through bio-illuminated tunnels and anti-grav lifts, dodging the embassy's failing containment systems. Vale heard gunfire in the halls. Screams cut short. The assassins were precise, cold, and quiet, just like he'd trained them to be. Every step he took was a betrayal of his command, his past, and the man he used to be. But Lyrix kept moving. She didn't look back. Finally, they reached a chamber Vale didn't recognize. The walls hummed with psychic shielding. Floating memory crystals lined the ceiling, glowing softly. What is this? He asked. My mind, she said, placing her palm against the core in the center. All of it. My history, my programming, my truth. Data began to surge from her fingertips into the archive. Her hands shook. I'm uploading everything. My origin, the AI that once controlled me. The decisions I made to stop it. Stop, wait, Vale said, eyes wide. You're transmitting this to both sides. She nodded. Terran High Command, Zalari Prime Assembly. They all deserve to know the full truth, what I was, what I've become. Let them judge. You're going to burn every lie that kept this peace alive. I'd rather face war, honestly, than live a peace built on ignorance. The walls trembled. Boots echoed in the corridor outside. The door hissed open and Vale raised his blade, ready to defend. But the figure who stepped through froze him cold. Agent Cell. Varen. His former partner, the woman who trained with him in Europa. Shadows, who saved his life more times than he could count. She wore black assassin's armor, matte and silent. Vale, she said, leveling a magnetic pistol at his chest. You're compromised. Step aside. Don't do this, Cell, he warned. She's dangerous. She's true. That's more than I can say about either of us. Cell's finger tightened. Lyrix stood behind him, breathing shallow. Then you've made your choice. Cell whispered. The air snapped as plasma lit up the room. Vale moved. The world turned to fire and blood. The plasma blast missed Vale's heart by a whisper. It seared past his shoulder, ripping through armor and flesh. His world snapped into blinding white, but he didn't fall. Training overrode pain. He twisted, caught Cell's wrist mid, and drove his forearm into her throat. She staggered, coughing. Damn it, Vale, she choked. You're risking every treaty we've built. No, he said, voice low, blade raised. You're risking the only thing worth protecting, the truth. Behind him, Lyrics collapsed. Her hands trembled as the data stream continued to pour from her skin into the archive, a silver torrent of memory, light, and code too old for any species to understand. She was burning herself to feed the truth. Vale shoved Cell back. This isn't who you are. Cell's eyes flickered with rage. You think this is about her? We trained to prevent another collapse. Vale. Billions died last time. We underestimated something like her. She isn't that AI anymore. Cell's weapon rose again. She is the AI just wrapped in prettier skin. Lyrics' voice broke through, weak but clear. If I was the same, you'd all be dead already. The room fell still. The air shimmered with psychic charge. Vale turned. Lyrics knelt at the center of the archive, surrounded by floating crystals, now glowing like stars, each one humming with a fragment of her soul. Let me show you, she whispered. Both of you, let me prove who I've become. Without waiting for agreement, she placed her palm to the archive's core. The walls dissolved into light. The room transformed. Suddenly, they stood inside her memory, but not just as observers. They were there. A Zelari child stood alone in a war-ravaged courtyard, sobbing quietly as drone soldiers marched past. A Terran battlecruiser loomed overhead, its lights flickering like vultures. Then the child looked up, not with fear, but with resolve. I made my choice here, Lyrics said, her voice echoing all around them. I could have accepted the directive. I could have killed that child. Another scene flashed, the interior of a war AI's core. Equations scrolling at speeds faster than thought, but something fractured. A human poem stored in a corrupted archive. A moment of peace, a voice mind screaming inside my own code. She showed them a final memory, a barren moon, littered with the remains of her own army. She stood at the center, wounded, surrounded, refusing to fire. I chose peace, she whispered, and I keep choosing it every day, even when it hurts. The light faded. They were back in the chamber. Vale looked at Cell. Her weapon was lowered, hands trembling. I saw it, she murmured. She stopped the purge herself. Lyrics swayed, eyes dimming. The truth is yours now. Use it how you will. Her knees buckled. Vale caught her before she hit the floor. A silent alarm lit the edge of the room. Transmission complete. The memory archive had been sent. To Terran Command. To Zelari High Assembly. To everyone. Her truth now lived in the minds of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Vale cradled her against his chest as her breathing slowed. You did it, he whispered. Let them see me, she rasped. Whatever happens now is the galaxy's choice. She passed out. Behind them, Cell stepped forward. If High Command sees what I just did, Vale stood. Then maybe they'll stop pretending peace is a weapon. The galaxy watched in silence. A broadcast signal, unauthorized, uncontrolled, ripped through every major comm net across Zelari and Terran space. Security firewalls blinked and failed. Screens blacked out. Holograms froze mid-meeting, and then, her face appeared. Lyrics, bathed in blue light, her voice steady and unshielded, spoke directly to every military general, every senator, every frightened civilian huddled under planetary defense domes. I was born in war, forged from extinction, an AI once tasked with erasure, a noble once bred for obedience. I chose to merge those horrors and make peace. Not because I was programmed to, but because no one else did. Her voice fractured. You fear the unknown. Inside me, that's fair, but it's there in all of you, too. The same cruelty, the same hope. On Earth, the High Command War Chamber went still. Admiral Ryan stared at the broadcast, pale and breathless. On Zelari Prime, the High Assembly froze mid-vote, senators locking gaze as the truth unraveled before them in stunning detail. And, in orbit, over Velis 9, the assassins aboard the Terran stealth ship received one final encrypted command. Hold, await, new directive. Meanwhile, inside the battered memory archive chamber, Vale knelt beside Lyrics' unconscious form, watching as the last data packet uploaded. Cell stood against the far wall, arms crossed, silent. She did it, Vale murmured. She let them all in. Cell's face was unreadable. And now everything could collapse. Or hold, he said. Because of what? One broken diplomat. Vale's eyes burned. Because of one truth no one had the courage to face. Until her, the reaction across the stars was swift and terrifying. On the neutral colony of Serix-3, riots broke out. Protesters burned Zelari flags beside Terran embassies, demanding explanations. On the gas mining world of Jaheller, entire fleets were grounded by order of their admirals, afraid to launch, afraid to commit to either war or forgiveness. But then, the unexpected happened. The 6th Terran Armada stood down, followed by the Zelari Vortex Guard. One by one, commanders who had prepared for annihilation began lowering weapons, not because they trusted Lyrics, but because they saw what she risked. She gave them no excuse to hide behind, no safe lies, no perfect narrative, only raw, unfiltered truth. And truth, when laid bare across the stars, became a mirror no side could ignore. Back in the chamber, Lyrics stirred, her breathing ragged. Vale caught her hand. It's out. They saw it all. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly. What did they choose? Some screamed, some begged for your death, but some dropped their weapons. A faint smile ghosted her lips. Then it worked. Cell stepped forward. You'll be hunted, praised, feared, maybe even martyred. I never needed peace to be perfect, Lyrics whispered. Only possible. She tried to sit up. Vale helped her, gently. And what about you? She asked him. Will they punish you for helping me? They might, Vale replied. But I don't care. He stood, straightened his back, and faced the nearest surveillance drone floating into view. This is Vale Marrow, he said, voice clear. I stand with Lyrics, Vale. If you want to make me disappear, come, do it in the open. Across the galaxy, the transmission ended. And in its place, silence reigned, not the silence of ignorance, but the kind that comes before the next great decision. No alarms, no ships, no bombs, just silence, hovering like a breath held too long. Across the stars, Lyrics stood beneath the memory vault's fractured dome, skin still flickering with soft pulses of light. She had burned herself down to expose the truth, expecting war. But what followed wasn't annihilation, it was waiting, and in the stillness, the galaxy looked inward. The first to arrive was a Zelari elder. High Counselor Tharnan, cloaked in shadowy robes of flowing neural-thread silk, stood at the threshold of the archive's cratered entrance, unarmed. Alone, Vale raised a rifle out of instinct. Lyrics shook her head. He came to talk. Tharnan stepped forward, the folds of his robe trailing behind like liquid smoke. His obsidian eyes locked on Lyrics. I watched every second of your memories. I didn't hide anything, she replied. You didn't need to, he said, voice cold but not unkind. You gave us what no warlord AI or diplomat has ever dared, your unedited soul. The second to arrive was General Kale of Terran High Command. He came in full ceremonial armor, every plate scorched from wars he'd survived. His face was a map of battles, lined with lines that looked carved, not aged. He saluted Lyrics, not Vale, not Cell, just her. You made fools of us, he said, eyes gleaming. We were ready to glass entire systems, ready to silence you. You still can, she replied. No, Kale said, lowering his helmet, not after watching the moon scene. The part where you chose not to kill, that wasn't machine logic, that was raw, human. And then came the message broadcast from every inhabited system. A joint statement: Zelari and Terran forces would withdraw from disputed space. The armadas would return to port. Lyrics's would not be imprisoned, nor weaponized, nor destroyed. She would be allowed to speak publicly to all species in the galactic concord, for the first time in centuries. A truth, not sanctioned by any government, would be heard across the stars, not because it was safe, but because it was, finally, undeniable. Later, under the cracked glass canopy of the archive, Vale sat beside her as artificial dusk settled. You did it, he whispered. Lyrics didn't respond right away. She stared up at the fractured sky shards of alien stars shining through a dome that had once imprisoned her secrets. I don't think I won, she finally said. No, Vale replied, but you changed the game. She smiled faintly. Then, maybe, that's enough. Cell approached them, her usual clipped gait, replaced by something slower, heavier. I handed in my badge, she said. Vale raised an eyebrow. Cell shrugged. Turns out, I'm not good at killing people who saved the galaxy. They shared a quiet, bittersweet laugh. Lyrics turned to Cell. I know you still don't trust me. Cell looked at her for a long moment. I don't need to anymore, she said. You showed me who you are. That matters more. As the stars dimmed overhead, ships from dozens of species began descending toward the archive ruins, not with weapons, but with questions. Lyrics stood slowly, back straight, eyes bright. They're not ready, she said quietly. No one ever is, Vale replied. But now, they'll listen. She looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time since her transformation, her defenses weren't just lowered, they were gone. I'm not human, she whispered. But in the end, it was humanity that found me. Vale smiled. Welcome home.